In order to get a stronger grasp of what's happening within the e-learning industry in Australia, another place we visited to talk to was Saba. NASDAQ-listed Saba is an e-learning provider of human capital development and management solutions. Richard, thank you for your time. Can you tell us a little bit about Saba and the solutions that it provides?
Saba is a specialist in the human management space, so we have management systems covering learning, performance, talent. We're a global organisation, so we incorporated here in Australia in '99, so we've been in the market for a long time. In the e-learning space, that's actually quite a long time because of the relative newness of the e-learning industry specifically. So,
when was Saba incorporated?
97.
And how long have you been in the Australian market?
Yeah, first version of Saba went live in 93, and then Saba incorporated and went public 97. And 99, we're incorporated here. Australia's always been early adopters of technology, if you like, so it's suited Saba to be here in this market, and we've had clients here since that time.
Australia is renowned for being an early adopter with many new technologies. With regards to e-learning, where do you think Australia is in terms of adopting e-learning within large enterprises?
The Australian market's maturing rapidly. Compared to the rest of the world, certainly Europe and Australia are quite advanced, and America as well are quite advanced in their use of e-learning as part of their business strategies. Australia would certainly be up there with any other country, developed country in that regard. Parts of Asia, countries like Thailand, India, where they've got fantastic infrastructure, are only just now starting to understand the benefits that they can derive from e-learning, and they're moving into it rapidly. Australia's mature in that it's learnt a lot of lessons. It's not widespread, the use of e-learning specifically is not widespread right throughout the country, but it's getting there very, very quickly. And by mature, I mean that the companies that have adopted it have actually learnt lessons from that and that are talking to each other. So the way that they're managing their e-learning and that they're deploying it, they've got a very, very mature attitude to how they do that.
Saba is in a very unique position, being a global company, to share and learn from different e-learning rollouts. In terms of these Southeast Asian nations that you mentioned, what type of firms are the ones that are adopting e-learning compared to Australian firms?
Similar types of firms, definitely, by industry, whether it be in banking or, health and life sciences, retail. But the way that they're adopting e-learning is, we can see very significant changes and differences. So in a country like Thailand, where they might be content-led, they're wanting to deliver a specific initiative or deal with a specific problem. In countries like Australia and throughout Europe and also in the US, we see e-learning to be very much more of a part of a bigger business strategy. So typically someone in HR will start off with an e-learning program around an induction program or some sort of corporate training initiative. But very, very quickly, they realise that business managers, sales managers in the organisation, compliance managers in the organisation, people who want to drive new information out to different audiences, can embrace the technology and then utilise it very, very quickly. So the customer for e-learning internally within the organisation shifts from HR to the business front end very quickly, and we see that, and that would be probably the biggest difference we see between markets that are maturing more rapidly, such as Australia, and other developing countries that are only now starting to move into e-learning. They're very much initiative focused, as companies in Australia see it as part of an integral part of their business strategy.
Saba, being an early pioneer in e-learning initiatives globally, would have access to case studies. So what are some lessons learned that you can share with us that any executive considering e-learning should be aware of?
There's a variety of things that we've all learnt in the industry from experience and at a variety of different levels. The first major one from our perspective is that you need a good platform for the delivery of the content itself. So from a technology perspective, learning management is always, and e-learning in particular, is always part of a bigger picture. It's part of a HR strategy, it's part of a training strategy, and e-learning doesn't exist on its own. It might be blended in with other forms of learning. There is other forms of enterprise content that will sit around it, etc. So the first thing is to get the platform right. And a platform that is going to manage the administration behind it, it's going to capture the data that you want to capture, be able to report on activity and progress so that you can get real visibility into the outputs, the results of what you're doing. E-learning and content are inputs. You want to be able to measure the effect that it's having in the organisation or external to the organisation. And to do that effectively, you need a good management system. So you need to manage workflow and process. So by putting in a platform that manages that effectively, it needs to integrate with other systems in the organisation seamlessly, like finance, HR, etc. And you need to be able to create that solid base. I guess then the next step is to say, what is it that we're actually trying to achieve? So from a content development point of view, as companies are starting to move into an e-learning frame, they'll want to develop content specifically around solving a problem. Being able to edit that content after they've developed it so that they can own it. They don't want to develop a piece of content, it's quite expensive, and then 3-4 months later, if they want to update it with new product information, they find they can't. So a lot of companies need to understand what their content management strategy is going to be as they start to move into e-learning as well.
And Richard, what is the best approach to identify the type of content that you need to be implementing into your e-learning solution?
By talking to other companies that have done this and by talking to specialist content providers, somebody who can give them examples, looking at what other companies have done. Generally, content is at 3 levels. You can develop e-learning content very easily and simply yourself using tools that are available on the market. You can go to specialist content developers, people who actually specialise in developing interactive, animated type media that helps to get a message across. So most organisations we're dealing with will want to find a balance, somewhere in the middle. They'll have some content developed externally and they'll develop some internally within themselves. A company like Promenade, for example, the insurance company that's parent to AAMI and Vero and a few other organisations, is a classic example where they'll have content partners come in and develop templates for them and assist them with the higher end content side, and then they'll have their staff working with those templates to develop stuff internally, and it keeps the costs down. Not all content has to be developed by content specialists. You can do a lot internally yourself.
Every new initiative has teething issues. When it comes to e-learning, what are certain teething issues that managers need to plan for and therefore will be able to effectively manage?
When they're making the decision to start off with, understanding what is it that we want to achieve, what are the quick wins. Implementing an e-learning platform usually requires a bit of a cost up front. Whether or not you're accessing the system via a hosted site, that is, you have a hosted provider providing a site for you so you don't have to install any technology internally. It's a very easy way of doing it, but there's still some costs there up front. If you implement the system internally, you want a system that integrates within your existing environment. You can do all that. It's quite easy. There's people who are experienced in doing these things, but again, it costs a little bit of money up front. So the thing that a business manager or a HR manager is interested in is what's it going to cost me, and then how quickly will I get a return on my investment. And this is where our experience has shown that if managers think about this like a cash flow statement going forward, that is, this is the initiative I'd like to drive out with e-learning. This is my priority that I'm going to focus on first. It might be delivering information about a new product or a new service to customers and to staff, for example. Quantifying how much that will cost me to get that out, and then understanding what the benefits will give me, and then looking beyond that one program. What's the next initiative that will follow? What's the next one that will follow after that? And at what point on a calendar will I be able to get my return? And once that we start thinking about it in those terms, we can start to understand when we'll achieve our benefits. Too many people will run into e-learning and expect that they're going to get a huge return on investment right up front. And it's simply not the case. E-learning in some cases will certainly lower the cost of training, but it's really about getting a business result. And if it's done well, it'll do both. But we can't go into e-learning just simply expecting that it's going to reduce the costs of training and not understand what the business benefit's going to be at the same time.